We're a quarter of the way through the Habs season, so you know what today is. It's Report Card Day on Hockey Inside Out. Hello and welcome to another episode of Hockey Inside Out. I am your host, Jessica Rusnak, and you know the three guys joining me today. We've got Stu Cowan from the Montreal Gazette. We've got Rick Green, former NHLer, Stanley Cup champ, and former assistant coach with the Montreal Canadiens, and Andrew Berkshire, program director at Game Over on SDPN Sports. So as I mentioned, we're a quarter of the way through the Habs season, and I want to get your thoughts. Put on your teacher's cap and give us your best evaluation on the team so far. We'll get Stu to start us off with what you think of the Habs season at this mark.
Well, what's that saying? The Canadiens are who we thought they were. I think before the season, I don't think anybody expected this team to be a playoff team. Excuse me, and they certainly don't look like one right now at the quarter point, just below 500. It's a young team. They're going to go through growing pains. There's games where they look great. They play one great game against Boston, one great game against Las Vegas, and the second games against both of those teams, they don't look so good. And then they got totally schooled in LA against the Kings. I mean, that was a mismatch. That was a legitimate Stanley Cup contending team with depth and size, aggressive forecheck, and the Canadiens just couldn't compete. So they are who we thought they are. I mean, the problem is, lack of offense, which has been a problem with this team for forever, it seems. They just, they have nobody in the top 70 in NHL scoring. They're just, Cole Caulfield hasn't been scoring. He's only on pace for 23 goals. He's the one legitimate goal scorer they had coming into this season. So they are sort of who we thought they were. I thought Cole Caulfield would have more goals at this point, but if he's not scoring, this team has a lot of problems scoring, and that's one of the things that has been an ongoing problem with this team. And I don't know how they're going to fix that moving forward. They don't have the offensive talent or depth to score a lot of goals, and when their goaltending isn't fantastic, it's hard for them to win.
Yeah, like Stu said, I mean, they've struggled in goals for and goals against. And listen, what we see here is the third youngest team in the league that are dealing with a lot of inexperience and a lot of kids trying to figure out, how to play well each and every night at the NHL level. And I mean, if you want to do a little bit of a comparison compared to last year, they were, last year was 11-9-1 last year. And this year, their record, they've got them, placed at 25th in the league. So they're struggling from that standpoint. And, they're going to have to make some improvements, obviously, to advance in the standing. So it's one of those things that we're looking at and not being surprised that we're getting the results that we're seeing, but they've got a lot of fine tuning to do, and it's a process here. And we said that from the get-go. It's going to take time, patience, and let's stick with it. Martin St. Louis is trying to keep things positive, that they're going about it the right way. And when will we draw the line saying, okay, now we have to get some results? But right now, dealing with, thank goodness they're getting the goaltending. Otherwise, they'd be really out of the picture. But we're dealing with a lot of bumps in the road, and they've got some work to do, and they're quite aware of that.
Yeah, I think our evaluation of the team would be very different if at this stage in the season they had the same record, the same results in terms of their play on the ice, and Kirby Dach was in the lineup the whole time. I think if that were the case, we would say this team hasn't taken a step forward. It's a bit of an issue with the trajectory of the rebuild. But with Dach out and the injuries that they've suffered, right now, they've got their top four, I suppose, but a lot of defensemen injured. And last year at this same time, remember, Caulfield and Suzuki were lighting the league up. I believe Suzuki at this stage of the season was shooting about 25% of his shots were going in. He was, crushing it, right? And those kinds of things aren't sustainable. We saw that the rest of the season for Suzuki. He went right after that was like a month or 2 months almost without scoring. So Caulfield's kind of in that drought right now, slowly pushing his way out of it. But I think enough players who you need to take a step forward are taking steps forward, that you can still remain like a little bit positive in your outlook. But it's very clear what this team needs going forward to build it out. And I guess that's a good thing, but I think unfortunately it's the hardest thing to find, and that's elite players.
And one of the things that surprised me this season, I mean, going into the season, the big talk was who's going to play with Suzuki and Caulfield. And in the last 10 games, Suzuki and Caulfield only been together once as a line at least to start the game. And Caulfield's struggling, and I think that has a lot to do with it. It's just he's not playing with Suzuki. And, you mentioned Kirby Dach, and that's a huge loss to the team. It limits the line combinations that Marty St. Louis can do. But you also have to remember, last season was a career season for Kirby Dach before he got hurt. But he had 14 goals in 58 games. That works out on pace to score 20 goals. So it's not like he was, if Kirby Dach was here, he would definitely help. But he's not like a guy who's going to score 40 goals. So again, goal scoring is continues to be a big problem with the Canadiens. And go back to, they haven't had a 40 goal scorer since Vinny Damphousse in 1994. They haven't had a 50 goal scorer since Stéphane Richer. They haven't had a guy in the top 10 in NHL scoring since Mats Naslund in 1986. They don't have that star offensive player. And Cole Caulfield, they were hoping he would be that guy. He's struggling this season. I think part of the reason he's struggling is he hasn't been playing with Suzuki.
Yeah, I think that's surprising with Cole Caulfield. Coming into the season, I thought for sure he'd be on pace to score 40 goals, and then he's gone through this struggling point now. But with the Canadiens, the thing I look at is that, is this a hockey game that I'm going to turn off because I'm bored to death? And so far, that hasn't necessarily been the case. They got shut out for the first time against the LA Kings, which is pretty impressive for a team that no one really expected much from them, that they haven't been really blown out of the water for the most part of these games. So there is, some positive things to look at. And if we continue on that positive line, at this point in the season, if you have to give an MVP, which player would you say is the MVP? Rick, do you have anyone that comes to mind?
Well, unfortunately, he's struggling lately in John Monahan. But there's a guy that we're seeing a healthy body and seeing what he does in the face-off circle, and and no matter who he plays with, he seems to make those guys better. And he's been a huge plus. And if you're going to pick somebody, I have to give him his marks for a guy that's stepped in there after some serious injuries and has been able to contribute in such a positive way on and off the ice, well respected, and good on the power play. He just makes everybody better having him in the lineup, and a great addition. And I got to give him my MVP mark.
I think I'd have to go with a bit of a surprise pick and say Caden Gooley. He's been the mark of consistency for this team all season long. His ascension from last year, where he looked good, but the underlying numbers were pretty bad, to this year where he looks good and is absolutely driving play. I'm really impressed with his growth. And I think that without him on the ice, the Canadiens, especially lately with Xhekaj out and the depth of their defense, crushed. And Mike Matheson, as much as he can create offense, is having a terrible, terrible year on the defensive end. So it's been Caden Gooley who's been the rock on the back end for me.
I'm going to go with Matheson. I know his minus 10 looks horrible, but he's also playing against the other team's best players, and he's also playing almost 25 minutes a game. He's in the top 10 in ice time in the NHL. He's playing monster minutes, especially since David Savard was injured. He's played with different partners. He's played in all situations. Some people might look at some of the giveaways he has, but he's one of those guys. He has the puck on his stick a lot. He creates offense. He generates offense. He has struggled defensively, like you said, Andrew, but I think part of that is just he's playing more minutes than he should be playing. And the big reason for that is because David Savard's gone. And Marty St. Louis is relying heavily on him. But for Matheson, I think just not only on the ice, but off the ice, he's such a respected guy by his teammates. They look at the way he handles himself off the ice, the way he prepares off the ice, the physical condition he's in. He's probably the best conditioned player on the team, which is why he can play the monster minutes he does. So I think I agree with Andrew, defensively has maybe struggled a little bit, but I think he's brought a lot to this team, and I think he's been a guy with the amount of ice time he's played, and on a team that struggles to score goals, as I mentioned earlier, he's a guy who can generate offense and get the puck out of his own zone and get the puck to the forward. So I'm going to go with Matheson.
Now, on the flip side of things, who would be the player that's disappointed you the most so far this season? Andrew?
Well, I think it's got to be Josh Anderson. I think that's probably going to be the consensus pick here. It's not even about Josh Anderson playing differently than he usually does. I think he's pretty much been himself. But the monkey is not just on its back, it's choking him right now. It is around his neck, squeezing tight. Eventually, he's going to bust this goal drought and go on a run. He'll score at his 20-goal pace. But right now, because he's such a limited player in all other facets of the game, he doesn't create scoring chances for his teammates, doesn't contribute much defensively. The one thing that he is really good at not functioning, it makes him basically unplayable. Yeah,
well, Raphael Harvey-Pinard's been a disappointment also before he got hurt. I don't think anybody expected to have no goals in 13 games before he had the injury. But yeah, I mean, it's with Anderson. It's incredible, like how a guy's gone a quarter of the season without scoring a goal. And the other thing is, I mean, his contract, it's a $5.5 million cap hit, but he's actually earning $8 million this year. $8 million and 0 goals going into the game against Columbus. He's the third highest paid player this season. Suzuki's making $10 million, and Cole Caulfield's making $9.975 million, including a $5 million signing bonus this year. So you got a guy making $8 million with no goals. And I've defended Josh Anderson in the past. Like, he's a valuable player. He plays a physical game on the forecheck. He wins puck battles. I know, Andrew, we discussed this a couple episodes ago on the power play, where you thought he should be off it, and I said, well, you should be there. I think, like, now you got to take him off the power play. And now it's just he's not scoring. Like, you got to give Slafkovsky or somebody else a chance there, and you can tell it's getting to him because it's affecting other parts of his game. He's not as noticeable as he was on the forecheck or playing the physical game, and it's understandable. I mean, nobody's more shocked he's gone 21 games without a goal than Josh Anderson himself. I mean, nobody could have anticipated this coming into the season, and it's weighing on him. And you hope that first goal is going to come eventually, and he'll start putting them in. But he's been a real disappointment, even more so recently, just because the weight of not having any goals seems to have impacted other parts of his game.
And 2 points in 21 games, 2 assists really doesn't cut it. That's not something that's a fluke. That's something that is very much a trend that he's not obviously bringing much rain. But that being said, I mean, we have said in other situations, he does get opportunity. He's not able to maybe find the net, but now it's getting to the point, and nobody knows it more than he does, that this is just way, way, way beyond what he ever expected and the team expected. And they're going to have to try and do something with him as far as, getting him in a situation to have some success. So mentally he can be a little more refreshed, because right now he's beat up from the standpoint he just can't get it done. And he's obviously feeling the pressure each and every game. And the bottom line here, he's not getting it done. So they're going to have to have some serious discussions as far as how they can get this guy back and get him on a little bit of a roll to at least, try and contribute something offensively, because as we see and what the statistics tell us, not good enough.
Rick, is there anything more that can be done? Like we saw, Josh Anderson get on the ice 20 minutes before practice just to work on his shot, because he says he didn't really like where his shot was going. He, joked around with Justin Barron, switching sticks with him. Like what more can you do for a player like this to help him get over this slump?
Well, I mean, I've seen it in the past, and the guys, the guys know it more than anybody when they're not doing anything offensively that are supposed to. And it's really it's a hard situation to put your finger on it. And yeah, you can go out there, knock yourself out, shooting pucks. You can do everything possibly to help yourself get your game back. But it's just a case of it's just not happening for him now. And it's a large part of the game people have to realize is the mental well-being of guys and how they handle themselves and how they are able to take advantage of opportunity. And when you're struggling mentally, you're not as confident, and you do some things maybe you normally wouldn't do if you had that type of good confidence. So they've got to work on his, we know what we get from him, at least he's trying, but the mental part and his well-being is critical in getting him on a little bit of a roll, because he's feeling it.
Well, the media were asking him the other day, about trying different sticks. And one of them said, maybe you should try a left-hand stick instead of a right-hand stick. And he sort of laughed and said, yeah, maybe. But you look at the ice time he has. Heading into the game against Columbus, he had 354 minutes of ice time total, which ranked fourth among forwards. 76 of those minutes were on the power play. So that's almost 4 full periods of hockey on the power play without scoring a goal. Like if you paid somebody to try and do that, try and play 4 full periods of hockey on a power play without a puck hitting you in the butt or the leg or somewhere and going in the net. I mean, it's remarkable, like how he hasn't scored. It's mind-boggling how he hasn't been able to put the puck in the net.
And it's even crazier that he only has 2 assists from all the shots that he's taken, right? Like not even shots on net, but shot attempts at something. Hasn't bounced off of somebody.
The amount of ice. I mean, Caden Primo Caden Primo has 1 less assist than Josh Anderson.
and you got to give hats off to Martin St. Louis, who's probably dealing with a little bit of criticism as far as like, why would you put him on the power play? But